There is a moment in everyone's life when one idea, one raw realization, hits harder than anything they have ever felt. It does not come wrapped in comfort. It arrives in the middle of your excuses, your doubts, your endless cycle of almost trying and almost believing. The idea is simple, but once it sinks in, it shifts something inside you that you can't shift back. It's the thought that David Goggins built his entire mindset on. You are far more capable than the life you are settling for, and every limitation you think you have is mostly self-created. People hear this line all the time, but few actually let it shake their understanding of themselves. We move through our days acting as if our potential is fixed, as if our story is already written, as if who we are today is the final version. The truth is that most of us haven't even touched the first layer of what we can endure, achieve, or transform. Life gets heavy, and when it does, most of us shrink. Goggins became who he is because he did the opposite. He looked at the weight and decided to grow stronger than whatever tried to crush him. He didn't wait for motivation. He didn't wait for someone to inspire him. He didn't wait for the world to hand him a better path. He created one by force. And here's the uncomfortable truth behind his journey. The version of you that is living inside comfort is not the real you. It's the protected version, the shielded version, the version that is scared of its own power. People say they want to improve, but they avoid everything that could actually make them better. We choose the easier path not because it's right, but because it allows us to stay the same. There comes a time when you have to stop negotiating with your excuses. You have to stop telling yourself you'll change when life becomes easier, because life rarely becomes easier. Instead, you grow tougher. That is the shift Goggins made. He realized that the breaking point most people fear is not the end, it's the doorway to discovering who they really are. Pain reveals what comfort hides. When everything feels effortless, you learn nothing about yourself. When you hit a wall, your character is exposed. Most people stop there. Goggins refused to. And that refusal became his superpower. Imagine living your life with a belief that every day holds another level of strength you haven't unlocked yet. Suddenly, the challenges you face stop looking like curses. They look like tests. Every tough moment becomes a mirror. Every failure becomes a teacher. Every setback becomes an invitation to evolve. This one thought changes how you see everything. Life isn't happening to you, life is training you. And once you accept that, you stop avoiding struggle. You start using it. Goggins didn't become unstoppable because he was fearless. He became unstoppable because he faced his fear again and again until it lost its power. He decided that the mind is like a muscle. If you train it through discomfort, it grows. If you protect it from every difficulty, it weakens. Most people spend their lives strengthening their comfort and weakening their minds. They run from cold, pain, fatigue, rejection, criticism. They run so much that running becomes their identity. But no one ever outruns reality. At some point, you meet yourself. And when that moment comes, you see exactly who you've become, someone shaped by fear or someone shaped by discipline. The thought that can transform your life is not some magical mantra. It's the understanding that you are responsible for who you become, and no one is coming to save you. No motivational video, no inspiring quote, no friend, no mentor, no lucky break. Help can guide you, but it cannot transform you. That part is your job, and the second you accept this, the world opens up in a way it never did before. You stop complaining because complaints steal your strength. You stop blaming because blame freezes your growth. You stop waiting because waiting is slow poison. This thought reshapes your decisions. You wake up and choose action instead of intention. You choose discipline instead of comfort. You choose growth instead of instant pleasure. You choose the long road because you finally understand that the long road is the only one that leads anywhere meaningful. Your mind is capable of far more than you allow it to show. Goggins says the mind stops at 40% of your actual capacity. Think about that. Your hardest day, your deepest exhaustion, your most overwhelming challenge. Your mind wants to quit at less than half of what you can truly endure. That realization alone can change your life forever. Because once you know the mind lies to protect itself, you stop taking its panic seriously. You stop believing the voice that says you're done. You start pushing through moments that once defeated you. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of discomfort, a version with more confidence, capability, and clarity, a version who has earned their self-respect instead of hoping for it. The question is whether you're willing to walk through the fire to meet that version. Most people never will. They want transformation without friction. They want strength without struggle. They want confidence without challenge. But nature doesn't allow that. Diamonds form under pressure. Muscles grow from strain. Minds sharpen through adversity. You cannot escape this truth. You can only decide whether you use it or avoid it. When you finally accept that discomfort is the doorway to becoming your strongest self, your entire relationship with life changes. You stop praying for an easy path. You start preparing for a stronger you. And at that moment, life becomes less about what happens and more about how you respond. That is the shift that lasts forever. The turning point in every great transformation is the moment you stop running from your own reflection. We all have a version of ourselves we try to avoid. The one who didn't try hard enough. The one who quit too early. The one who made excuses instead of progress. Most people distract themselves so they don't have to meet that version. They drown themselves in entertainment, noise, scrolling, comparison, anything that keeps the truth buried. But there is a strange freedom that comes from confronting your honest reality. Goggins calls it getting real with yourself. When you face the truth without filters, without softening the edges, you finally see the gap between who you are and who you could be. That gap is painful, but it's also powerful. It becomes fuel. It becomes a roadmap. It becomes the reason you start pushing in ways you never have before. The moment you accept that your current life is a result of your past choices, you also accept that your future life will be built by the choices you make from this second onward. That realization breaks the illusion that you are stuck. You may be behind, but you're not trapped. You may have regrets, but you're not finished. You may have failed, but you're not defeated. Every day is a new vote for the person you want to become. Once you embrace this mindset, you stop asking for permission to change your life. You stop hoping for the perfect moment. You stop searching for motivation like it's some rare treasure. You begin to act. Action becomes your language. Action becomes your identity. Goggins learned that you cannot think your way into strength. You train your way into it. You earn your mental toughness the same way you earn physical strength. Through repetition, through challenge, through choosing to show up when your body and mind scream to stop. This shift changes how you face obstacles. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin to ask, "What is this training me for?" Suddenly, setbacks lose their sting. Failure becomes a stepping stone instead of a dead end. Pain becomes part of the process. You stop seeing life as unfair and start seeing it as a teacher. Even the hardest days carry meaning because they sharpen your edges. A powerful part of Goggins' philosophy is the understanding that growth is not supposed to feel good. Society sells a comfortable version of self-help, but real transformation is gritty. It's uncomfortable, it's often lonely. You won't be applauded for choosing discipline when others choose ease. You won't be celebrated for waking up early, staying consistent, or pushing through frustration. The world rarely notices the internal battles you fight every day. But that's the beauty of this path. Your effort doesn't need applause to be meaningful. The reward is internal. The reward is the person you become. You start to understand that discipline is a form of self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your identity. You build trust in your own word. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop lowering your standards. You stop drifting through life waiting for confidence to magically appear. Confidence grows from doing hard things, especially when no one is watching. There's a moment in every difficult journey when you feel alone. When you think no one understands how hard you're fighting. During those moments, it's easy to quit. But that's exactly when Goggins would push harder. He believed that suffering is not a punishment, it's a classroom. It teaches resilience. It builds character. It sharpens your internal voice until you no longer need external motivation. You become self-driven. You become dangerous in the best way. As this mindset strengthens, you begin to detach from the old version of yourself. You stop needing comfort to feel stable. You stop depending on others to feel capable. You stop tying your identity to approval. You start taking responsibility for your choices, your habits, your future. The world may not change immediately, but you start changing in ways that make the world respond differently to you. When you push consistently, something incredible happens. Your mind adapts. The limits that once felt immovable begin to stretch. Tasks that once overwhelmed you become manageable. Challenges that once scared you become stepping stones. You evolve into someone you barely recognize, someone who carries a quiet strength, someone who walks with intention, someone who handles setbacks with calm determination. The people around you may not always understand this transformation. They may question your discipline. They may feel threatened by your progress. They may accuse you of changing too much, but that is part of the journey. Growth always reveals who belongs in your life and who only belonged in your comfort zone. When you start demanding more from yourself, you unintentionally raise the standard for everyone around you. Some will grow with you. Some will fall away. Let both happen. The key insight is that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. That is why Goggins obsessed over daily discipline. Your goals don't shape your life, your habits do. A small, consistent action beats a big, inconsistent effort every time. And the moment you understand this deeply, you stop relying on mood. You stop waiting for inspiration. You follow through because you said you would. That simple shift separates dreamers from doers. This one thought continues to transform everything. Your mind is your greatest weapon, and you can train it to work for you instead of against you. Once you grasp this, nothing looks the same again. Once you accept that your mind can be trained the same way you train your body, a new world opens up. You begin to understand that every challenge is an opportunity for mental conditioning. You start to see struggle as practice, not punishment. Goggins calls this building your mental callus, the same way your hands form calluses when you lift weights or work with tough tools. Those calluses protect you. They strengthen your grip. The mind works the same way. Every time you resist the urge to quit, every time you push one step past your comfort zone, every time you fight the inner dialogue that tells you to stop, you're building a layer of resilience that will serve you later in life. This resilience shows up in small ways at first. You start finishing what you begin. You stop giving up halfway through tasks. You find yourself staying calm in stressful situations that would have shaken you before. Your emotional reactions become measured instead of explosive. Your inner voice grows steadier. You begin trusting yourself to handle whatever comes. And once you have that trust, you walk through life differently. You carry a sense of control that most people never experience because they avoid discomfort instead of mastering it. Life becomes a series of choices where each moment is a fork in the road. One path leads you back to who you were. The other leads you toward who you're becoming. When you start choosing the second path more often, you create momentum. Discipline becomes easier. Hard work becomes familiar. Challenges shrink instead of expanding. You build inner strength not by chance but by choice. Goggins talks about the accountability mirror. It's not a metaphor, it's a ritual of honesty. When you look in the mirror, you don't sugarcoat your flaws. You don't blame others for your situation. You call yourself out. We live in a world that fears honesty because honesty exposes the gap between our talk and our actions. But the mirror doesn't judge you, it reminds you of your potential. When you face yourself with total honesty, you remove the mask you've worn for years. You begin to address your weaknesses not with shame, but with strategy. Your mind learns to operate from truth instead of illusion. Illusion keeps you soft. Truth makes you strong. Truth forces you to confront your patterns. Maybe you procrastinate. Maybe you give up when things get tough. Maybe you fear discomfort. Maybe you depend too much on external approval. Maybe you sabotage yourself. When you acknowledge these things openly, you gain the power to change them. You can't improve what you refuse to acknowledge. Once you start being honest with yourself, discipline becomes a natural extension of that honesty. You stop making promises you won't keep. You set goals based on effort, not ego. You measure progress not by comparison, but by consistency. And because the standards you set are self-created, you no longer feel pressured by others' opinions. You stop living for applause. You start living for your own respect. This mindset transforms your relationship with fear too. Fear loses its sharpness when you face it regularly. Goggins ran through fear instead of away from it, and that approach rewired his brain. Fear stops being a signal to retreat and becomes a sign that something meaningful is on the other side. Growth and fear are twins, they show up together. So when fear appears, you learn to lean in instead of pulling back. You stop letting fear close doors that were meant for you. You start opening them with confidence because you know that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move in spite of it. Soon, your world expands. You find yourself attempting things you once believed were impossible, not because your abilities suddenly changed, but because your mindset did. The moment you start seeing yourself as capable, your actions follow. You begin challenging your limitations. You begin setting bigger goals. You begin living with purpose instead of drifting with excuses. This transformation also changes your relationship with failure. Failure stops feeling like a final verdict and starts feeling like data. You treat mistakes as information instead of insults. You analyze your choices instead of attacking your identity. You learn faster because you allow yourself to fall without giving up your forward motion. The more times you fail, the more experience you gain. The more experience you gain, the stronger you become. One of the most powerful outcomes of this mindset is the quiet confidence it builds. True confidence doesn't come from praise or success. It comes from surviving difficulty and showing up again. It comes from proving to yourself that you don't break as easily as you once believed. You stop defining yourself by your weaknesses. You start defining yourself by your resilience. And that shift extends into every area of your life: your health, your career, your relationships, your dreams. People around you may start asking what changed. They may assume you found some secret motivation, but the truth is far simpler. You stopped lying to yourself. You stopped escaping discomfort. You stopped letting fear run the show. You took responsibility for your potential. And once you do that, the world no longer intimidates you the way it once did. This is the power of that one thought. Your limits are not fixed, and your potential is far greater than you think. When you live by this belief, you stop acting like a victim of circumstances. You become a student of adversity. You start pushing the edges of what your mind and body can handle. And through that process, you unlock a level of self-respect that no external achievement can match. Your life doesn't change when the world becomes easier. It changes when you become stronger. And strength is built one difficult choice at a time. There comes a moment in the journey when everything you've been pushing yourself through begins to make sense. The early mornings, the late nights, the internal battles, the doubts that whispered in the dark, the exhaustion that tried to pull you under, all start to feel like stepping stones instead of obstacles. You start to see a pattern. Everything that once felt impossible now feels manageable, and everything that feels manageable begins to feel like potential. This shift is what Goggins means when he talks about becoming uncommon among the uncommon. It's not about arrogance, it's about realizing that most people stop once the path becomes uncomfortable, and you didn't. You kept going, you kept showing up. You kept fighting through the moments where quitting felt logical. When you reach this stage, your mindset enters a different territory. You stop identifying with your old limitations. You stop doubting your ability to adapt. You stop shrinking to fit the expectations of people who never understood your fire. You start living with a sense of personal power, a quiet energy that tells you that you are capable of enduring more, becoming more, and giving more to the world than you ever believed. This transformation also changes your relationship with time. You stop wasting days waiting for inspiration. You stop treating your life like you have unlimited chances. You start respecting every hour because you understand that each one is a building block of your future identity. Goggins often talks about the urgency of now. Not fear-based urgency, but purpose-based urgency. A desire to see what your life could look like if you stopped holding back. Every step forward begins to feel like an investment in your future self. Every repetition of discipline adds another layer of strength. Every moment of fatigue becomes a reminder that your body and mind can handle more than they claim. You stop needing comfort because you've grown comfortable with the unfamiliar. You start chasing goals that once felt out of reach, not because they magically became easier, but because you grew into someone capable of achieving them. There is a point in this journey when you realize something profound. The person you feared becoming was never the failure version of you. It was the regretful version. The version who looked back on life knowing they never pushed themselves. The version who wondered what could have happened if they had tried harder, trained stronger, believed deeper. Regret is a quiet poison, and Goggins refused to let it be part of his story. That refusal can become part of your story as well. You begin choosing the hard path not because you enjoy suffering, but because you understand that the hard path shapes you. It sharpens your character. It reveals your strength. It separates you from the version of yourself that lived small. You start measuring your days not by comfort, but by progress. You start observing your thoughts and challenging the ones that limit you. You start treating your mind like a tool you control instead of a trap that controls you. The world opens up when your mind opens up. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw walls. You begin to see solutions where you once saw problems. You begin to see opportunity where you once felt trapped. And the most powerful change of all is that you begin to see yourself as a force capable of rewriting your story at any moment. This is the core message behind Goggins' philosophy. You are not defined by your past, your pain, your environment, or your excuses. You are defined by the choices you make from this moment forward. Every step into discomfort is a vote for the person you want to become. Every act of discipline is an investment in your evolution. Every time you push yourself beyond your old limits, you are carving a new identity, one built on courage instead of fear. You also start realizing that the mind has infinite layers. Just when you think you've reached your limit, another layer appears. Another level of endurance, another level of focus, another level of clarity. This isn't about pushing until you break. It's about pushing until you transform. Goggins discovered these layers through extreme challenges, but you can discover them in your own life, in your own way. The scale of the challenge doesn't matter. The commitment does. As you evolve, your purpose becomes clearer. You stop chasing achievements to impress others. You start chasing growth because it fulfills you. You start showing up for your goals not out of obligation, but out of gratitude for the chance to improve. You realize that the journey of becoming your strongest self is the real reward. The external success is just a reflection of the internal transformation. Eventually, you reach a point where you become your own source of motivation. You don't wait for good days, you create them. You don't depend on emotion, you depend on discipline. You don't fear the hard moments. You welcome them because they remind you that you are alive, capable, and in motion. This level of inner strength cannot be taught through words alone. It is earned through experience, through effort, through facing your internal resistance day after day. And then one day, without a dramatic moment or a big announcement, you look at yourself and realize you are not who you used to be. The person who hesitated is gone. The person who doubted is gone. The person who avoided challenge is gone. You became someone you once admired but never believed you could become. You stepped into a new version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and grounded in a sense of purpose. This is the power of one thought. You can transform your life the moment you decide to stop living at a fraction of your potential. This idea may sound simple, but once it genuinely enters your mind, it changes how you see everything. Challenges become training. Pain becomes information. Discipline becomes freedom. And your life stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you shape with intention. The world may not change overnight, but you do. And when you change, your world eventually follows. This is where your journey begins, not with motivation, but with responsibility, not with excitement, but with commitment, not with perfection, but with the willingness to step forward even when the path feels uncertain. Your story is not finished. Your potential is not defined. Your strength is not fully discovered, and your life is waiting for you to rise into the person you were always meant to be.